Oh, now he's recording. All right. Good
He
job,
was
Craig.
recording. He was recording last time too when you didn't show up.
And nobody will
Hi,
ever
everybody.
understand what any of that means.
How's it all going? I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher.
I
Not
am the
tired
not
enough.
I am the not grumpy whatsoever Dungeon Master Jay.
Why ain't you grumpy? This is the whole be on brand, bitch.
I mean, just wait until I start talking about things, then I'll find something to be grumpy about. One of the things I want to talk about is really shitty D&D rules. So, you
Well,
know that?
there's
Yeah.
plenty of those.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know that always gets me going.
So we're in a bit of a news slump when it comes to official WotC D&D products, but there was an article that came out recently on Comic Book Gaming where they found a high-res photo of the starter set that was leaked during the Hasbro conference, the Hasbro yearly. This is how well we did. We made a bajillion dollars because we sold Magic the Gathering cards and started NFTs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hooray. Um, so it's the Dragons of Storm Wreck Isle, the new starter set that they're coming out with this year.
Yeah.
So they have a higher res photo of the one that was in that video. And on the cover of that photo is Hank the Ranger with his signature energy bow and Diana the Acrobat leaping over the Blue Dragon's breath. On the pages of the book, you can see Eric the Cavalier with his light up glowing shield.
Okay. For the people who are younger than you, and
So
I
what this
know
means
I
is
know who they are, but who the hell is Hank the Ranger and Diana the Rogue? Explain this to the people who have no clue what you're talking about.
back in the 1980s, there was a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and though that world, what it was never like an official setting or anything. It was just like, hey, here are kids that went on a roller coaster and somehow wound up fighting Tiamat in their very first session of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, they ended up
And
getting lost in some mystical world, and occasionally the dungeon master would claim he was going to take them home,
he
and
never would.
and he never did. He was such a lying piece of shit.
There was about 25 episodes. You can find it on YouTube, I believe. You can find it on DVD at Walmart in the $5 bin. The characters themselves were never in any official Dungeons and Dragons works. There was a couple like winks and nods, depending on a few video games and other books. 3.5, I think, showed off one of the character stats. Presto was rumored to be an apprentice of Elminster. In Baldur's Gate 2, it was mentioned that those characters actually existed, but were eaten by Tiamat. So I mean, like they've always been like a part of the D&D mythos, but never like an official part of the setting. So if they were to actually be in this Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, this would be the first time they're actually in print on something, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Another funny thing to note is when Acquisitions Incorporated did like maybe their second or maybe their first like live performance on stage at PAX, they all came out dressed as their characters. So Mike Krahulik came dressed up as Jim Dark Magic. The other guy came up dressed as Omen Drawn. Scott Kurtz came dressed out as Binwin. I think Will Wheaton was there as his Elven Ranger or character. Or Avenger. I can't remember what it was. His name was.
And his
But
cursed dice.
Chris Perkins came out dressed as the Dungeon Master. And the
Yeah.
Dungeon Master, for those who don't know, is basically a short, like super short dude with like missing
He,
the top of his hair with
he looks
long
like
white hair.
He looks like Danny DeVito with white hair.
Yeah, Danny DeVito with white hair and giant red robes.
Yeah.
So there's that $14,000 statue coming out here soon too. That
Oh my god.
depicts that Tiamat and the little kids. We talked about that
Yeah,
an
yeah.
episode or two ago. So it's interesting that they may actually bring these guys into actual official lore, which it would just be neat, you know.
So truthfully, they could easily do that. You know, they're
Yeah.
already they're looking to just say you can play in all these realms all together. Nothing really matters anymore. So have these characters show up in your campaign or whatever, and that's fine. But what I really
I
hope
mean,
they do, if they're in that book or if they're on the cover, specifically if they're on the cover of that book, I hope they're on the cover and then there's no mention of them again, which would be exactly what they've done throughout the course of D&D lore. You know, just a
yeah.
little wink and a nod to them, but never have anything official with them.
Yeah. I did see like the rumored official stats of the cartoon Tiamat, and it's like a CR5 dragon.
Yeah, I think we talked about
Yeah,
it all off the podcast. I think
yeah,
no,
it's kind of
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. Like, yeah, I'm still of the mindset that they were fighting the TR 20 or 30 or whatever the hell Tiamat is, and got lucky.
By the way, if you are an aspiring DM out there, do not put your first time level 1 characters up against Tiamat.
No,
In no world is that fun.
no, do not do that. Don't even have Tiamat in the game until they're, I don't know, level 15 at least. Yeah, you shouldn't be seeing dragons until you've got a few levels under your belt.
Listen, you can bring in an ancient white dragon when they are level 4.
Yeah, apparently you can,
Yep.
especially if it's completely fucking blind and has a dead person on its back. But
So that leads into my next fun conversation. In Adventures League this week, my group went out to the Dark Duchess, and they did that entire encounter there. And our Beatrice, whatever her name is, the ancient white dragon, landed. I actually put a video up actually up on our TikTok. That's the only video we have on our TikTok right now
I
of
saw it. I
me
didn't see it on
grabbing
TikTok, however. I saw it on Instagram.
of me grabbing that thing off the wall and like slamming it down because I bought it. I bought the mini. I told my wife like, hey, I'm running Adventures League. If they do the Dark Duchess and they're going to come up against this white dragon, I'm going to buy that white dragon and uh, use it in that encounter. And that's exactly what I did. One person died. The other ones convinced the dragon to let them go.
They didn't just
And
run away
I was rereading the adventure this time. How can you run away?
because it's blind.
It's blind outside of 30 feet.
Yeah,
If it's within 30 feet, it sees fine. And
yeah,
it's on top of the ship. Okay? So they're in the hold, trying to free the treasure. It's on top of the ship. Okay? So it can see everybody in the ship. And for them to escape, they have to run up to the top level of the ship and like run away from it.
yeah.
Okay?
You don't have to be the fastest; just don't be the slowest.
Right. But if I want to be really bad about it, when we roll initiative, the first attack is Dragon's Breath. They're dead.
Well,
You know?
if they're in the ship, then they're
Yeah.
fine.
No, they weren't because she sticks her head into the ship.
You can't see every room in there.
They're in the treasure room.
Eh,
That's the
Maybe
main. That's where her hole is. That's where
did
she
they not?
goes.
Did they not catch worm sign when they got on the boat? Like it was pretty damn obvious from the description.
Worm sign.
Yeah, the fact that there's like claw holes in the side of the boat and everything that's in the description.
No, they did not take a moment to look at anything or look at any rooms. They got up to the top of it. I read off all the claw marks and stuff like that. They found the troll,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
and didn't bother to go, hey, are these claw marks the same size as the troll claw marks? They just went, no, there's a troll there. And that
And
was it.
that's what
That they were done. That was their
and
logic.
and thank you.
Yeah.
And that is why you do not have dragons against level 4, especially Adventures League players ever.
So then they were out there just like trying to get to the treasure, and that's when she just showed up. It's like, bam, hi, here I am.
Yeah.
So I was nice and didn't just start the round with breathing frost dragon breath on him. One person hid. The rest of them did some role play and try to talk to her. The player that's the kobold did what kobolds do and immediately swore fealty to the dragon.
Yeah, of course, naturally.
And this is the same guy who, back when I started talking about Adventures League and doing it again, tried to basically converse his way with the Archfey in the Feywild and couldn't land a single roll above 10. Okay? This guy got a 19. He rolled a critical on his persuasion, minus his 1 for a 19. And then I rolled for the dragon to see what she would think. She got a 3. And I was like, even if I had 13, it still fails. So she was like, sure, yeah, you can join me.
I mean,
So
to be
he
fair,
kind of like
it'd be good to have a
joined her.
minion to, help clean up the guy on the back. Yeah,
Oh
things
yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, there were kobold minions in the ship, and they did mention that the troll killed them, and they weren't wrong. So they actually tried a persuasion check that, and against her insight, and they passed again. And there was just the bard character was like, "I'm giving you guidance." He's talking, and all the stuff that he's saying was working. He did try to kind of like convince the dragons, like, "Hey, why don't you fight the Frost Maiden? Don't you care?" And the dragon's like, "No, I don't give a shit." And he was really perplexed by that.
I like cold weather.
I like cold weather. This is great. Love it. I don't care about her, but she's taking over everything. It's like, not my home. But he didn't know it. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't care if she freezes this whole place over like in 100 feet. I'll just like dig around in the snow and have fun. I'm a puppy.
I like cold weather.
So they talked their way through everything, and they did pretty well. I basically helped seed the whole idea of going to Grimskull and obtaining the Frost Maiden's book at the very bottom of that, because I didn't feel like that was seeded enough. So I mean, the people are supposed to do that for you in the next chapter, but I kind of want to give them more things to go there. So she gave them a month to go over there and get that book, and it's going to be very interesting because they're also going to get the quest to start the next chapter, and who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking about it because it's hard to having run Icewind Dale, because you're sort of running it haphazardly because it's an Adventures League thing. Uh, like that's a major part of the actual storyline, but you've still got all these little side quests that I thought you were going to be running for Adventures League.
It is what it is. What happens at the table happens for everyone that's been playing the hard to cover book. So like if they miss 3 weeks and come back and like, but I wanted to go here and do this for them. It's like, well, you missed those weeks. They went there. They did the complete opposite. Remember the person you're supposed to turn in for a bounty? Yeah, they befriended him and stabbed him and then ate him. Like the group is kind of crazy like that.
It's Adventures League, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like the idea of using dragons for brand new players, especially. And maybe they're not all brand new, but I know the vast majority of them are, because they're not necessarily going to notice the fact there might be a dragon there.
And that's specifically why I did not start with the hostilities with the dragon like the book wants you to. Like the book wants you to kind of toy around with them for a little bit and then murder them.
Yeah, which is very dragon-like. I mean, dragons
Right.
aren't all. You don't necessarily want to freeze the first thing you've seen out there. Maybe just chop it into little pieces.
So it felt good, and like I said, they were really good with the rolls. The dice were on their side that night. Another fun thing I had to happen was like when the dragon started attacking people, I was going to have her attack at disadvantage just because of the eyes. Give them as much possibility of survival as possible. I actually went to like the front counter where all the workers were going, and I actually had them roll like the first like 10 attacks from the dragon. So at disadvantage. And half of them never played D&D or even knew what was going on, so they're just rolling 2d20. And I don't think a single one of them rolled above a 16 at disadvantage. So it is what it is.
All the modifiers, that's still over a 20, but yeah.
Yeah. One person did piss her off, and she did hit him, and he survived.
I mean, what level are they? 4th?
There were 4, yeah. This brought him up to 5.
Yeah, that'd give them enough hit points to survive a hit.
Yeah. One of the players hid the second she showed up. Like he ran to where this goat was and hid there. And the rest of the group eventually they left. So he hid there with this goat for 3 days.
Oh
I'm
my
having
gosh.
him make stealth checks and con checks because the dragon's not leaving. Like she's just kind of like hanging out there talking to whatever the wizard's name is, Mal.
Right.
I was say Malfurion, but that's what it is.
I have no idea what it is. I don't remember at this point.
So she's talking to the dragon because she's insane, and I eventually had the goat start bleeding, like because he kind of failed an animal handling check. So the goat starts bleeding, and the dragon kind of starts yelling at the goat from the top of the ship, and he tries his luck. He's like, "Haha! I'm not a goat. I'm actually a wizard." And like that was the worst thing possible he could say, because I've actually did a little bit of the reading up on the dragon and her rider,
Uh-huh.
and there were a lot of wizards that tried to basically usurp her rider and take his power. But the second is, haha, I'm a wizard. Like, that surprise, her immediate instinct was protect the rider, and
Yeah.
so he took the entire breath of her
Yeah,
breath there.
that's a dead character.
No,
If I was him,
Theront. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it is.
if I was him, I probably would have just released the goat, and when the dragon looks after the goat, I take off running in the other direction.
That may have worked. So we actually did the breath. I had him roll the 16d8 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was exactly double his hit points. So he died, but he had enough money to resurrect. That was the other thing too, is that when this encounter showed up, there was no if the fight broke out, there was no chance that they were not going to get TPK'd.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you're not fighting a dragon
right.
at level 4. You're just not.
So what I had him kind of do to kind of like get TPK'd but not actually get TPK'd at the same time was that they had to hand over all their gold and valuables to the Dragon Horde, like add it to the Dragon Horde. So essentially, if they would have died, if she would have showed up, she stuck her head in and breathed, and everybody died, which was what the book says to do. That's 100 gold in their back in Adventures League. But if they take 100 gold and they throw the 100 gold onto their pile, onto the dragon's pile, that's essentially resurrecting from a cost perspective. So they actually spent more than a TPK. People lost like their religious symbols and stuff like that, and a few other stuff.
Yeah, but
They were able to
that's
slide a hand check away a few things away, but overall they came out at a net negative.
yeah. I mean, truthfully, through role playing and whatnot, it makes more sense to pay off the dragon.
Yeah,
Sure, technically because it's Adventures League and they can just resurrect for 100 gold or whatever. Sure, you're losing more by role playing it, but that's the idea is to role play it. If you
mm-hmm.
have to pay off this dragon and it costs you everything you've got, if you want to live, do that.
Yeah. Because they're playing hardcover books, they're not getting the continuous rewards that you get from running Adventures League. Like usually, like every time you run a session, you're getting like 400, 500 gold. Everything's
Right.
crazy. Because they're running the hardcover book, they're only getting what they get or what they earn, and no one's like looting everything and bringing it back to
I was
town
gonna
and
say, and let
selling
me
it.
tell you, in Icewind Dale, that isn't much.
Right. So now that because they survived an encounter, they're now level 5. They just got the 4. They did this encounter, and now they're 5. So now it's a tier 2 table. The tier 2 table is 300 gold to resurrect. They're not going to be getting 300 gold anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean,
And
my players were able to get money, but they got most of their money in Icewind Dale off of just one thing.
yeah,
It was never a consistent income.
someone on our Icewind Dale, I mean our round with the Frost Maiden, was actually talking about how he sent his players out, and they came back with something like 30,000 gold. And I didn't read the details of it because I just kind of saw it in passing. But I was just like, I don't want to know how your players went out and came back at level 6 with 30,000 gold.
Yeah, that
What
seems.
did you do that was? Did they like? What did
I
they do? I
I
actually
don't.
kind of.
Yeah, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but there was a thing that you were able. You had the potential to get it and sell it for a few thousand gold. I don't remember exactly what level, 3 or 4, maybe 5. Like it's relatively early in the campaign. But that's the only thing I can think of. And when I say a few thousand gold, I'm talking 1,500, 2 grand, not a ridiculous amount. Not sure as hell, not 15 or 30,000.
Yeah, so my players just returned from chapter 4, richer than ever. What can he do with that money?
Chapter 4 is
Chapter
pretty
4 is
late. Yeah.
yeah, but it's only that one thing. There's not buying land levels of money there.
Oh yeah, I mean, what the hell are you going to do with 30 grand in Icewind Dale? You can't buy anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing to purchase with it.
I mean, people are saying, giving them suggestions like go to the Dwarven Valley, they can buy stuff there. It's really weird how they came back with that much money, unless they like somehow like disassembled a couple key weird creatures and like sold them for parts or something.
Yeah, look, they could easily be running some variants and stuff. You definitely pick up a number of magic items along the way,
Yeah,
but there's nowhere to sell them. Nobody has that much money in Icewind Dale, so maybe they
yeah,
had technically 30 grand worth of stuff. I could believe that, but not actually 30 grand.
right, right. So it's just really weird. So I'm very interested with how the game goes from here because no one has 300 gold. They're not beginning to be getting 300 gold anytime soon. So if a player dies, there's no way to bring them back, and they're just going to be off my table at that point in time. You know?
Yeah, and Icewind Dale is pretty brutal. If you don't, if you're not careful, if you don't know what you're doing, and Adventures League players a lot of times don't, yeah,
Well,
you're
I mean,
definitely likely to die.
at this point in time, they're not newbies. I mean, you're always going to have like, oh, what does that spell do, or what does this do? Because I do.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, the decisions are their own. So don't fuck around and find out because you'll find out it will be negative. But I think a lot of them has learned that's how Icewind Dale works.
Hmm.
In fact, one of the players told me very specifically in those exact words.
But
So,
one of them did try to tell a dragon that he was a wizard,
haha, I'm a wizard.
as opposed to attempting to run away.
Yeah, it was entertaining though. I enjoyed it. So yeah, I got those pictures. I got all the pictures up on Instagram and stuff, and I got the video on TikTok. And TikTok did something. It shared. I don't know.
I saw it on Instagram, so I'm guessing it shared it there.
Cool. Follow our social medias. Just
Yeah,
search for Grumpy Dungeon Masters, and you can find us and
yeah, it's pretty easy to
follow
find
us.
us.
So
Uh,
it was crazy. I I just don't. I love the figure, by the way. My daughter's been sick, so I've been trying to like make her happy. And one time, I kind of like took the dragon. I was holding it by like the tail because it's a huge figure. It's like the size of my cat, you
yeah, I
know.
saw it.
And
It's big damn figure.
so I took it and I was holding it, and like I flew into her room, going swoosh, 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 and then I landed next to her. And I was like, "Hi, Maddie. I'm a dragon. How you doing?" She's like, "Oh, hi, dragon. How are you?" Now she's got like 103 fever, so she's probably hallucinating. Thinks the dragon's real. I was like, "Hey, you need to take this medicine to feel better." She's like, "Thank you, dragon." She took the little medicine. I did it like multiple times with the dragon, so she probably thinks dragons are real now.
Yeah, dragons are just doing the Lord's work.
Oh, crazy. So, did
uh,
you do anything fun this weekend?
yeah, I played some D&D. We played a bit more of the pirate campaign. Nothing specifically to talk about. No more tales of Seabeard. We did go and get him a bird though, although I ended up keeping it. You remember
What you needed, what you need to do is you need to find a bird for Seabeard and then get a really tiny belt of Dwarven kind for the parrot and put that on the parrot.
that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah,
Except I'm probably well, I'll give him a parrot, but we found a bird of paradise. I'm keeping that son bitch for myself, I
yeah.
think.
You can tap it for any mana.
Yeah, exactly. Tap it for any color of mana. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I did over the weekend. A little bit of a D&D, played some Magic Friday night, the normal. Uh, so I was reading this thing on the DM's resources group, and we get all sorts of weird questions and just stuff on there. And I don't have it up in front of me, but the basic idea. So a DM got into an argument or a discussion with his players. He had I think it was a hill giant. It was either a hill giant or a stone giant, and they have multi attack.
Yeah.
And for one of the attacks, he used it as a grapple. Now, per the D&D 5e rules, if you have multi-attack, you can use a grapple in the place of an attack. That is the actual rules as written. But the players were pretty adamant that he couldn't do it because when you look at the monster stats for the creature, it says he has multi-attack with a club. So the argument was, does he have multi-attack without the club?
So I'm
Yeah, what's your
I'm
opinion
not
on this?
sure. I'm not sure. I'm not on DM resources. I'm actually on Dungeons and Dragons the Dungeon and Dragon Master advice group, which is a
Yeah.
different group than the one that always has the crazy stuff. And literally, that was the question that the first thing that loaded up was that question.
Oh,
So my understanding is that grapple is an action.
there.
That's my
I sent you the stone giant stats so you can actually see specifics.
okay. So grapple says when you grab a creature, I mean, I would look. I mean, as a DM, I would look this up. I'd look up grapple just to verify. It says when you want to grab a creature or wrestle with it, you can use the attack action to make a special melee attack, a grapple. If you are able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this attack replaces one of them. So I guess the question there was that because it can only make a multi attack with the stone club. Is that
Yeah, well, it reads multi-attack. The giant makes 2 great club attacks.
okay?
It doesn't. Do monsters follow the very specific rules as players? And in my opinion, as a dungeon master, yes, they follow the same rules as the players. It could make a shove attack. It could uh, make a grapple attack. But I can at least see why they could try to make that argument just by the way it's written. Because it specifically reads multi attack. The giant makes 2 great club attacks. Um, I'm always going to side on the idea of creativity. If a person can make a grapple attack, a giant should be able to make a grapple attack.
So there was a sage advice column about this specifically, and the question that gave this answer was the question was this: is the grappling rule for the player's handbook usable by a handless creature?
If it's
So
got a mouth, I guess.
it says the grappling rule PH 195 was written for a grappler with at least one hand, but a DM can easily adapt the rule for a handless creature that has a bite or an appendage, such as a tentacle that could reasonably seize someone. A wolf, for example, could plausibly try to seize a person with its bite, and the animal wouldn't be able to use its bite attack as long as it held onto the person. Keep in mind that the grappling rule in the player's handbook requires the action, so a creature must take that action, rather than the multi attack or another action in the creature's stat block when it uses that rule. A monster such as a roper has a special grappling attack that doesn't follow that rule when using its attack. So what it's saying is that if you look at the stone giant stat, multi attack is the action itself. That allows a giant to make 2 great club attacks. So if the stone giant has a great sword and not a great club, it can't do multi attack because it doesn't have a great club.
Really, that's not how I understood that when you just read
That
that.
no, so multi attack is lets them give multiple attacks. So they can't do the grapple and an attack, okay? Because they have to use their action to trigger multi attack. And then
Uh,
multi attack specifically says the giant makes 2 great club attacks. And because great club is written there as great club, they can only use a great club to trigger multi attack. They can't use a great sword. So that's why some monsters are written. This creature can make 3 melee weapon attacks, and some don't have that.
Now I'm going to look this up myself because I want to read grappling. I think we're going to disagree on this one.
I mean, you could rule whatever you want,
No, no,
but
I think the actual
yeah.
rule is different.
Well, the actual rule is you can sub grappling states that if you want to grab a creature or wrestle with it, you can use the attack action to make a special melee attack, a grapple. If you are able to make multiple attacks with the action attack, this attack replaces one of them. Okay? Now, monsters don't have the same attack that a player does. Player has when you take an action, or when you take your action to make an attack, you can make an additional melee attack
Hang on.
as part of that action.
I
So
actually do have my player's handbook here.
because grappling is just an action as a whole, they can either
It's
choose.
it's all a matter of the wording. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you actually probably are right on this, and
Yeah.
it's very specifically because players do not have multi attack. They have
Correct.
extra attack.
Correct.
It is not the same thing.
Correct. So because the monster has to trigger the multi-attack action, and that has its own specifications to that.
Yeah.
It can't substitute that attack with a grapple.
Yep.
They can do one or the other.
Yeah, I actually would agree with that, just because this is I talk about this a lot on here, but very specific wording matters. With games like this. Now, as a DM, you can always just override that. Truthfully, in my own campaign, I probably will at some point. But
Yeah.
the simple of it, the rules as written, yeah, that probably is the case, because extra attack and multi attack are not the same thing.
I mean, I know I haven't followed that rule, and honestly, I didn't realize that was the rule until this very moment.
That's why we
look at it.
Got this deep dive.
Because one of my players fought a giant solo, and it was Bruce did it. I mean, we talked about that just when he was on a couple minutes ago. He did his multi attack to grapple the guy, and then throw the guy.
Yep,
I mean, so that wouldn't have worked technically by the raw rules.
We did that in the pirate campaign, not this weekend, but last weekend, because one of our players shapeshifted into an earth elemental and grabbed a guy and then threw the guy.
They can't do that.
Yep. Rules as written, he can't do that. He cheated.
I mean, but this is such a nuanced specific.
Yes.
I would almost not run it this way.
Yeah.
I would think it's just more it's almost more logical that, so multi-attack is the action that they take, but I still would probably run it if it's just for flavor of combat. Like, oh, they grab you, and then they hit you, or slam you on the ground, or whatever. Yeah. That's the two attacks, and it does relatively the same damage. Because when you're designing monsters and you're designing what they are, when you bring in CR and their strength and all that, the requirement is how much damage they're putting out per round. So the Stone Giant in this case has two attack actions. He's got his Great Club and his Rock. Okay, the Great Club is 3d8 plus 6. It averages at 19. The Rock is 40, 10 plus 6, which averages at 28, but it also has a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. So you're looking at like between 30 and 40 damage because he can do the Great Club twice. That's basically 19 plus 19, 38.
Yep.
And the Rock is 10 less damage than that, and you go prone. So if you take multi-attack as a DM, and you're flavoring it up instead of just, okay, he rolls a great sword, great club, and he misses. He rolls, okay, he hits, okay, blah, blah. I mean, if you're trying to flavor it up, that's your damage window. That's the damage you want to get. So have the two rolls happen, and then be somewhere between 30 and 40 damage to the player for that successful action for the Stone Giant, and you're meeting that range that the Stone Giant's supposed to be in for damage per round.
Yeah, see, me as a DM, I would probably allow that creature to throw a rock and take a single Great Club. Like, I'm going to allow it to make 2 attacks. And that is not rules as written. That's just how I, as a DM, would allow it. Even if that damage goes above that number that you're talking about, it still just makes sense that it could do those 2 things, since it's supposed to have 2 actions.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that's how they wanted it to work for the monsters. I never actually saw multi-attack as an action before. I'm surprised that it actually is, but it makes sense now that I look at it.
Yeah, and I understand why they write things that way, because they want everything super, super streamlined, so people can't say this is overpowered, this isn't, this is underpowered. They're just looking at numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not looking at the creativity behind it. If you want the creativity behind stuff like this, you as the DM have that option. If your players complain that a giant took two separate types of attacks in a round, tell them to shut the hell up in a much nicer fashion than that.
Yeah.
It's your table. Don't be rude, obviously. Work with your players, but you're trying to have a little fun here. You're trying to tell a story, and a giant making two separate attacks isn't going to break the game.
Right. I mean, so the players were kind of right to call foul, but at the same time, too, just let the DM tell his little story.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden the Stone Giant is doing 160 damage per round, that's a problem with the
It's a little
grapple.
different, unless your characters are all like 600 hit point characters.
Yeah.
Then nobody cares. But
To be honest, what Bruce was doing to the player was less damage overall than the 3 Great Axe attacks it could make per turn. So
yeah, picking up is 0 damage, and throwing him, probably takes a couple d6 hitting a wall and a couple d6 falling.
it was a couple D10 for hitting the wall, and then it was like I think the room was 20 feet high, so it was just 46 for falling, and
Two d6.
2d6.
Yep.
I keep thinking it's 2d6 per 10 feet.
That's one of the rules I'm going to bitch about here in a couple of minutes.
All right, we'll bitch about it now.
Oh, all right. Well, I was scrolling around on the internet as I do, finding really stupid D&D rules, and one of them is falling, which we've talked about it at least a little bit on here. Falling makes no sense. The fact that for every 10 feet you only take 1d6, that means that a decent level character could literally just jump off a 100-foot cliff and walk away fairly easily. If you're 10th level and you jump off of a 100-foot cliff, what's that? Your average, you're going to take like 50 points or something, and you're going to have more hit points than that. It doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid fucking rule. So I actually thought up a better way of doing it, and maybe in the future they'll do it this way, although I wouldn't count on it. I feel like for every 10 feet you fall, it should double. So if you fall 10 feet, it's 1d6. That's fine. But if you fall 20 feet, then it's 3d6. Or sorry, I can't math. It would be, yeah, it would be 3d6. And then it would go to 6d6, then to 12d6. So if you're falling 40 feet, you're then taking 12d6. It's much more realistic. You're going to take a lot more damage from that.
So I looked it up. I just wanted to re-verify. So
Sure,
falling
yeah.
in 5th edition is for every 10 feet you fall, you take 1d6 bludgeoning damage.
Yep.
So a maximum of 20d6, and
Yeah.
then you land prone, unless it avoids taking damage from the fall. Then I want to say
I actually didn't even know that part. Well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That means you cannot land on your feet after falling 10 feet unless you can just reduce damage to nothing.
I mean, technically, so like if you're a fighter and you're in plate or you're in heavy armor and you have a heavy armor mastery and you jump off 10 feet and you land and the damage is 3 and less, you land on your feet.
Yeah. But that's because you're reducing the damage to nothing.
Yeah. So falling in 4th edition is even better.
Oh,
falling
is
damage
it
is
better as in worse or better as in it was a better rule?
Yeah, let me read it. In 4th edition, a fall of 10 feet or more may inflict damage on a falling creature. The creature takes 1d10 damage for each 10 feet it falls, up to a maximum of 50 d10 for a fall of 500 feet or more. A faster alternative damage calculation for falls of 50 feet or more is 25 damage for each 50 feet, plus 1d10 for each extra 100 feet. When a character trained in acrobatics falls, the character can make an acrobatic check as a free action to reduce the damage he or she takes from the fall. 1/2 of the result of his or her acrobatic check rounded down is subtracted from the falling damage. A creature that is flying, when it begins falling, descends the full distance of the fall, but subtracts its fly speed from the distance of the fall for the purposes of determining falling damage. For example, a flying red dragon with a fly speed of 8, 40 feet, takes damage from the fall as though the fall was 40 feet shorter and does not take damage from a fall of less than 50 feet. Creature that takes damage from falling falls prone when it lands. And this is why fourth edition was bad because you
You're
look at
still
fifth,
talking. Oh my
you're,
god.
you're, you look at fifth edition and it's just like one paragraph and you're done. You look at fourth edition and it's like, okay, if this then this, if this then this, if this, and it's like 14 pages later.
I'm actually impressed. They managed to outrule third edition there. Because third edition had a lot of rules and a lot of number crunching. And third edition's falling damage, from my understanding, was exactly the same as fifth edition. Just very, very simple. I don't even know what the hell you said half of the time.
No, it was very mathy. Like the whole like the thing they have for falling there, and like reducing the fall height by that amount. Like that's cool if you really need to get that munchkin about it.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
like the whole idea of being trained in acrobatics and reducing the fall damage a little bit. That makes sense.
that was a thing. That was a thing in third edition. Monks could just sort of, I think, half the damage, or maybe even if they were within 5 feet of a wall as they were falling, they could reduce it or take nothing.
Yeah.
But that it was still a very simple rule. It wasn't difficult.
So I want to give you this scenario because I'm bringing this up. I was playing the Owl campaign. All right.
Yeah.
And I think the party at this point in time was a Haragon monk, level like 6 or 7, a wizard, the wizard blade singer, um, the elf ranger guy, the barbarian tentacle guy, and my wife was playing somebody at this time. I can't remember. I think she's playing the cat. So
All
they
right.
climbed up. They climbed up to where the library was because they had to kind of go back through the library again to get the Vorpal blade. And when they got up there, they were approached by a bunch of kobolds who started doing stuff. Well, I thought it'd be kind of cool to play a trick on my guys and use the command on the Haragon and have him leap off the platform outside, off the building.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, command says is that you can't make a creature do an action that they would deem that would hurt them. Okay. But I remember the monk had something that was safe for falling, where they basically didn't take fall damage or something like that.
Right.
So that's why I was kind of hoping that would be. I really didn't know. So I kind of went with it, and I cast command, and the first thing was like, oh, he can't do that because I will hurt him. I was like, yeah, but doesn't the monk get like slow fall or something? And he looks at the thing and goes, oh yeah, I won't take any damage from that.
Yeah.
So on my turn, I leap off the side.
So basically on your turn, you just removed him from combat completely.
Yeah.
Well done.
I mean, so like, yeah, if you don't take fall damage, and someone commands you to run and jump off a building, it's not going to hurt you. So you still do that command.
Yeah. I mean, per the way command works, if it's not going to deal damage.
Yeah. What does slow fall do? Slow fall, beginning of fourth level, use reaction when you fall to reduce any falling damage you take by an amount equal to 5 times your monk level. Okay.
All
So
right.
like I said, I think it was 50 feet. So that would have been 5d6. So maximum would be 30 damage. And he was level like 6 or 7. So yeah, even at 6, he would reduce the whole damage.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems like it
Yeah.
works to me.
Goodbye, monk.
Yep.
Whee!
I'm gonna take a look at a couple more of these really stupid rules. One of the stupidest ones I've always thought about was jumping. The
Yeah, we talked about the grung that can kill himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So high jump is simply based off of your strength. Period. Doesn't matter. It rules as written. When you make a high jump, you leap into the air a number of feet equal to 3 plus your strength modifier if you move at least 10 feet on foot immediately before the jump.
Yeah.
All right. So, somebody with a 22 strength can jump 9 feet in the air if they run at least 10 feet or move at least 10 feet. Okay. There's some high jumpers who might be able to do that. And we're talking about superhuman levels of strength here. So, sure. The problem with this is that an elephant can also jump 9 feet in the air.
Yeah, I think we brought this up before. Elephants can't jump.
Yeah, they actually cannot jump, but there's nothing on their stat sheet that says they can't. And per the rules of D&D 5e, they can jump 9 feet. So elephants are way more fucking terrifying nowadays.
Actually, bringing this up too because
That means the Terras could jump like 12 feet.
I mean it walks like it's 20 feet. So
Yeah.
I actually used long jump in my last Adventures League game when they were fighting the troll. There's that hole in the ship, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the side that I was at, it was only like 15 feet, I think, was the gap that the troll needed to leap over. And one of the players had run all the way around to the other side of the hole, and basically he just wanted to stay at the stairs, and because they had the giant hole between him and the troll, and he could just shoot the troll from there. Well, technically, if you look at the board at the time, he was the closest person to the troll. And that's kind of how I was gauging my attacks. Plus, he hit the troll with fire. So he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
But the player's thinking, oh, I'm fine. I'm at the top of this staircase, and there's a giant hole between, me and the troll.
Yeah.
So I had the troll move 10 feet, jump over that pit, count out every square as part of his movement, and then
they're going to have trolls probably have an 18 strength, I would guess. So
oh yeah,
yeah. So that's 18 feet they can jump according to the long jump rule.
Yep. And so he was right there, right next to him, just like bam, right on the stairs. He was like, "Oh, this is bad." And then it makes its 3 attacks or whatever, and he went down.
Yep.
They almost did not finish beating the troll. The troll was a CR8. And
trolls are relatively beefy. They're kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, and the thing was too is I started off that Adventures League encounter was like saying, "I want to let you guys know I'm playing this straight from the book. I don't fudge rolls one way or the other.
It's a frost
I want you guys
too, yeah.
As I want you guys to know that I'm just presenting it as it is. I want you guys to tell a creative story. I will play this as best of my ability, but I'm not being mean at all with what happens tonight." And I'm thinking of the dragon in the back of my head, but they're fighting the CR8 troll with 5 level 4 players, one of which decided the best course of action was to jump down into the ship and then run into one of the other rooms, but that's the room that had like 4 kobolds in it. So like 4 kobolds used their ready to action to throw their spears at the bugbear that just ran into the room. So he died.
Oh no.
So the rest of the fight was just 4 players versus a CR8 troll.
While the bugbear bleeds to death downstairs.
Yeah, he did do his saves, and I didn't have the kobolds kill him, because they actually they did actually push the troll into the pit, so it landed, and there was kobolds there, so they just ran and rushed the troll and started stabbing the troll. Problem is, when the troll's turn came around, it just has this aura of just cold that just hurts you. There's no save, you get hurt. So all the kobolds died. But it's weird how everything you've brought up today I've used in the past week.
That's hilarious. Let's see if you've used this other one, because this one I seriously doubt it, especially in Icewind Dale. Apparently, everyone in the world can hold their breath for at least 30 seconds. So
it's worse than that because
it is definitely worse than that by a long shot. But everyone in the world can hold it at least 30 seconds. Even a toddler apparently can hold it for 30 seconds because that is the minimum that somebody can hold their breath according to the rule book.
I mean, have you ever seen the videos that look horrifying where parents throw their babies, 3 to 1 year old babies into a pool?
No, I can definitely say I've never seen a video of somebody doing that, but they should probably not have a kid if they're doing that.
Well, I mean, when you get to more I'm going to say more aquatic civilizations, when you get to more lifestyles where you're swimming a lot, getting your baby to learn how to right itself so it can start breathing and float in the water is a pretty critical thing.
Yeah, but at 1 year old, no.
at that age. And like there are plenty of courses out there and training out there. And I actually saw a video on this recently where like they took the baby, he went bloop, and just threw it in the water, and the baby hit and landed, and it was like trying to right itself and trying to figure it out. And like I'm looking at the video time, I was like, it's been in there for too long. like you could see the mom like right next to the baby, like trying to like holding herself back from grabbing the baby and like letting it and like pulling it out. But the baby did right itself and got itself orientated and was floating there and started making the proper cries to let people know that it fell into the water. Like I know that's a legitimate thing, and it seems horrific on the outside. But I know that's an actual legitimate thing. And watching that video, that baby held its breath for a long time, more than you would think that it could.
Fair enough. Like I learned to swim when I was 3 or 4 years old. Like I was pretty
Yeah.
young. And yeah, I just can't imagine throwing the baby into the water. I can imagine getting in the water and holding the baby, but whatever, whatever. I am not an expert on these kind of things. I don't even have kids. Uh, but
So
yeah,
I,
just
I can get that a baby can hold its breath for 30 seconds.
fair enough. But it's the very simple fact. So if, according to the player's handbook, a creature can hold its breath for a number of minutes equal to 1 plus its Constitution modifier.
Now this is where it really breaks down for me.
Yeah, so if you have a Constitution modifier of +4, that means you can hold your breath for at least 5 minutes.
You know,
There are absolutely people who can hold their breath for 5 minutes plus.
yeah.
That is an absolute fact. But it ain't got shit to do with Constitution modifiers. It has to do with the fact they've practiced it a lot.
I remember this came up with me when I was running Waterdeep, and I decided to basically kill a player by paralyzing him and stuffing his face into the boiling pot of a hag's boiling pot,
Okay.
and like I didn't really like. Oh, you're gonna suffocate and die pretty quickly, you know.
Yeah.
But then when we kind of did the math, it's like no, I get to hold my breath for like 14 minutes. Like the fuck you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe 4th edition. That's not how 5th edition. But even then, 5 minutes. That's a long
Yeah.
time. Like that's
That,
more than a paralyzed spell's gonna last.
so just saying, just if you just said a medium-sized creature can hold its breath for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, that's still 5 rounds of combat.
Yep.
You can get a player out in 5 rounds of combat, even if they start suffocating and they start dying.
Oh, it's more. It's more than that. What is it? Yeah, I guess it would be 5 rounds. Never mind.
Yeah. So even that, like when a creature runs out of breath or is choking, it can survive a number of rounds equal to its
Oh yeah.
Constitution
Yep.
modifier, minimum 1. So after 5 rounds, let's say it dies, okay, because now it's basically choking. Then it has that many
More rounds
more
to survive.
rounds to survive, which could, let's just say it's +4, so that's 4 more rounds. Okay, so that's another
Yep.
20 seconds here. Then he goes to 0 hit points and is dying, and he can't regain hit points. And then I think it's dying, and then it starts making death saves.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you hit like dead status. Yeah. So assuming you just have the 30 seconds that you're allowed to hold your breath, that means that no matter what, you're still going to be able to survive for 1 minute. Or well,
Yeah,
maybe less than a minute. That would kind of depend on your Constitution modifier, but you're
yeah,
probably just assuming you can last up to a minute. At that point, you would probably be dead, and then have to start making death saves, which is
yeah.
another 3 rounds if nothing hits you.
Right. And from if I had to look into this more, but so like if you start making death saves after your 5 rounds, 4 rounds, and then your death save rounds, let's say you get 3 successes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Then you're fine.
you can't be stabilized, but you're not dead.
Yeah,
So at the start of your next turn, it drops to 0 hit points, it's dying, and it can't regain hit points or be stabilized until it can breathe again. So if you continuously make death saves and you pass
stay underwater
all
forever
those death saves, you can stay underwater forever until
until
you
you
get
fail
those
those death saves.
failures. So there's some super ass lucky halfling in the water deep harbor that's still just like passing his death
Yep.
saves.
Yep. Been down here forever.
I just
I,
live here now.
I live here now. Oh man, that's ridiculous. So
It
the,
really
the
is.
the other stupidest rule, and this is the last one I'm going to talk about. But there, mind you, there are many, many more. But this one, I read it and I was like, that's just really dumb. So a creature can push, drag, or lift a weight in pounds up to 30 times its strength score. All
Yeah,
right. So in D&D, the average score is 10.
yeah,
That's
that's
the
a commoner.
most commoners would have a 10 in strength. This
Yep.
means that they can deadlift 300 pounds. I mean,
Well, they can push, pull, or carry.
well, no, it says push, drag, or lift. I don't mean deadlift above your head, but I mean lift off the ground 300 pounds. I don't know about you. I wouldn't be able to get anywhere close to 300 pounds off the
I
ground.
can. I have to get 300 pounds off the ground. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just the state of life.
well, it's a difference between walking and picking up.
Listen, if
Like,
I do a squat, it's still
yeah,
still my body weight.
yeah, but that's not what it's talking about. It
An
means
additional, yeah.
yeah, an additional 300 pounds. I,
Listen, this isn't.
I'm sure I know a few people who can pick up 300 pounds, but it's not a hell of a lot.
This is a different era of human being, and there's a
Oh,
different era of. Listen, we lost a lot when we evolved as a species, and we can't deadlift as much as we used to be able to. We're just not as strong as we used to be.
I mean, to be fair, farmers, if they were well fed, back in olden times, they were probably, I don't know about 300 pounds, but they would definitely have been stronger than I am if they were
I mean,
well fed. Most of them were not.
your average farmer, your average farm kid that could chuck hay bales for 3 hours in the morning each
Yeah.
morning is insanely strong.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at Brock Lesnar. That guy is a freak, and he's cornbread fed country. Like throwing hay bales and picking up cattle on his back, and yeah, that's the kind of shit that he grew up doing. But he's not most people.
Right, but when most people have to do that on a daily basis, I can understand it.
You'll definitely get stronger, but 300 pounds is still a hell of a lot. That is a lot of weight.
Listen, I'm the strong one. I'm not nervous.
I mean, I used to be able to leg press a lot more than that, but that was also when I was young and strong. Now I'm old, weak.
And my knees don't work as well anymore.
My knees don't work. My back's messed up. I got 2 torn ligaments in my shoulders. Yeah. I'm definitely not lifting 300 pounds. I am weaker than a commoner in D&D.
Yeah, you are. Sucker. I totally forgot what I wanted to talk about. We're actually at an hour right now, but I know there's something else I wanted to talk about. Can't
Oh,
remember what it is.
well, that's good. That means I mean, we still managed to cover an entire podcast worth of stuff, and you'll have stuff for next week.
No, it has to be this week.
Why?
No, I know what it is.
All right.
So I went out to the LARP this weekend.
Yep.
And um, I had to leave early, so all I could do was Friday night do my Monster Marshal stuff where I gave out the monsters the stats that plot told me to give out. Essentially, my job is to be logistics for the plot team and hand out the monster stats to the monsters. So the plot's the DM crew, and I'm just basically helping them out, giving monster stats. So they give me these monsters that pretty much there's 3 different types of monsters. It was a bloated corpse. It was a zombie, a humanoid zombie, and a charred plant. Okay, and I looked at these and I was just like, okay, that's cool because they were doing kind of
Are
like a
they doing
weird.
Plants vs Zombies?
No, so they split up the field battles to 3 separate locations because of the
Yeah.
COVID restrictions. So there's actually 3 different types of field battles going on. And I don't know whether it was a copy and paste error or it was ease of use, but they basically had the same body and armor for every single creature.
They're
So
just different descriptions.
the charred plants had armor somehow, and the bloated corpses had body and armor, and then the humanoid zombies had body and armor. So the humanoid zombies then had the undead information there.
Right.
So, like, destroyed by lives and cures,
Yeah,
they get healed by causes. The standard stuff that undead get in Shadowmoor.
Right. Immune to
But
charming magics and all that other fun shit. Yep.
But the bloated corpses did not have that.
All right.
And so I was very confused, and I had to go confirm with them, and they had to talk about it. And eventually, I got the answers like, yes, they are undead, and then no, they're not undead. I honestly didn't know at the end of the night, but I did my best to help them get them out there, and everything ran fine, smoothly that night. And I bring that up because as someone who had started writing D&D stuff, I got to be very careful with the wording of things, and that's pretty much what we talked about all tonight is the wording of things.
Really talked about it a lot lately.
Yeah,
And
you can't call something a bloated corpse and not have the person immediately think that it's an undead.
Yeah.
If this bloated walking corpse is walking towards me, and this other humanoid zombie is walking toward me, they're both undead. The description I'm given, if I'm the player and the description I'm given, I am a bloated corpse, and the other description I'm getting is a humanoid zombie, I am adding my undead modifiers to that damage. Now, I as a player should be saying undead lord yes or no, and then the monster should say, yes, I'm undead, but that wasn't listed on the sheet. That's why I went and talked to Plot to find out if they were undead.
Yeah.
So they could properly, run the game and say whether they were. So that it's very critical if you're writing stuff to make sure you have all that stuff there.
Yeah.
You don't want to get too wordy. Like they didn't have to write out everything that we listed about what happens to undead in the game. You can just say undead package. And that's an unknown thing. We all learned something tonight that multi-attack is an action. We all learned that tonight. So, there's always going to be some confusion, and that's just how things go.
In D&D, it's fairly straightforward. Like, undead are undead. You've got elementals, you've got aberrations, you've got beast, and each one of these has sort of certain expectations of them. Like elementals are going to have immunities and resistances and things based on what they are. Undead are probably they're undead in general in D&D are immune to poison. I think there's another immunity to them. I don't remember what it is, but yeah, like these are certain things. So if you have something that is one of them, it needs to be labeled that way because there are certain expectations of that.
So I bring all that up, and basically being clear with data is super important because of what happened to me on Saturday night. I had to come home early because my daughter was sick. I didn't get a chance to be in play at all at the LARP this weekend. I just came. I came, did my monstering shift, and went home.
Yeah, it's a long drive for that, but
it happens. But I was still good to see all my friends for a little while.
Yeah, at least for a little bit.
So I had Saturday night to myself. My daughter was down sleeping, and my wife was asleep, and I was working on Dread of the Ice Devil 2. And I have two last encounters I need to write. The final big bad encounter. Well, not the big bad, but the final encounter that leads to like the next part of the game, or to like part 3. And there is a trap room that I'm writing as well too. Now the trap room is very specific in that it was something that I initially had in there as part of the original layout of the keep that the spear is being kept in. But I realized upon looking at the map that the location of the trap room makes absolutely no fucking sense.
All right.
All right. So like you if you were in the keep by itself, you would come down the stairs to where this level is, and there's a door to your front and there's a door to your left. If you go to the left and follow all those rooms and that hallway all the way around, you wind up where the spear room is. Okay? And if you go to the door in front of you, that's where the trap room was. So the trap room was there to help keep people away from the spear.
Even though
but it's not in it's not in the layout to where the spear goes. In fact, the only thing that this stops people from going to is the banquet hall and the barracks from getting to where they need to go quickly.
You definitely don't want those guards getting to and from the entrance.
Oh
It's
yeah,
very
not at all.
important.
So
um,
I completely effed up the location of it. So then I was like, okay, I can fix this in post by saying that this room was now a creation of the Ice Devils, and that's why they're putting it there. You know,
all right.
but then it's like, well, what was in this room before, and why would they do that here? Why not put that more in the direct pathway of the where the spear goes? Well, it's because when I designed the room, I wanted the players to go in this kind of like weird W-shaped pattern to get through to the spear, and I pretty much did not take into effect, what
They
the
can just
layout of the building
bypass it.
really
Yeah.
should have been, and they could just easily bypass it.
Yeah. So
And
basically, you have accidentally written a first edition thing.
I totally messed it up, and so now I'm trying to like scramble to figure out, okay, what can I do to make this trap room seem logical and something that would actually be put here by somebody. And like eventually, like I said, like my conclusion was I had to make it be a room that is now this room per the Stygian forces that are there.
Yep.
And that's my short answer of it. It's just very poorly written because of that, and it made me upset because like I want to strive to be very clear and very concise with why things are where they are, And here I am making one of the biggest blunders I could possibly make. And I
Oh
basically had to
well.
spend all Saturday night trying to figure it out and fix the problem.
Have you seen the meme that's been floating around of Batgirl's bathroom?
No.
So it's a picture of Batgirl in the bathroom, just standing there doing her makeup or something. And the layout is the most absurd MC Escher thing you've ever seen. And this was probably in a real comic book. But like the bathtub is sitting on top of the rug, the throw rug that's in the bathroom. Like just completely underneath the bathtub. And the bathtub is also in front of the door, the only way in and out of the bathroom. Yeah, just everything in this layout is just atrocious, and the whole meme is like, the longer I stare at this, the worse it gets. But that's kind of what it sounds like. Not,
I see it here. So it was on our crappy design on Reddit. It
yeah,
says, if you ever feel useless, just remember Batgirl paid a decorator for this. And as bad as you said, the tub
the tub
the
blocks
tub
the door.
blocks the door. I think someone basically drew the bathroom and then added the door afterwards, maybe by accident.
Probably, yeah,
I don't know. That is quite terrible. That also reminds me of the Simpson house.
yeah, yep.
So they have that one room in the Simpsons house that like they've only been in like a few episodes of the television show.
Mhm.
Um, let's see if I can find it here real quick. It's so like you know a couple rooms in the house. So like the kitchen, the front
Kitchen,
the
the
front
living room, yeah,
yeah. So if they're on the couch, that's kind of like the living room that leads out to the patio.
right,
And you can see into the other living room that they usually have family meetings in. Okay.
yep,
But if you go from the couch room to the kitchen, on the other side of the kitchen, there's like a game room that has basically like a Nintendo and a couple beanbag chairs and whatnot. And that's the rarest room that they show on The Simpsons. It's only been like a couple of episodes.
right.
Like the house doesn't make sense unless you know that room is there.
Yeah, it's poor design. Now, obviously, with The Simpsons, they didn't really care. It's a cartoon. They're just putting stuff together.
No,
Um,
and when you see the layout, it actually all makes sense. It's just
yeah,
without knowing that room is there, the garage just seems like it's
it's off
like there's,
floating
yeah, it's
somewhere.
all floating someplace. It's kind of interesting.
But yeah,
So yeah,
design matters, layouts matter, wording
yeah,
matters. Everything kind of matters to an extent when you, especially if you're writing it to sell to people
yeah, and especially you want to avoid having your players fight a dragon when they're first level
or fourth level or
or
any
fourth
level
level.
or any level under 10th level.
I brought it all the way back around to the start. That's
Yeah,
a good podcast.
that is a good podcast. Good job there. Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
So long. The grumpiness has been your friend. Now go and spread anger through D&D. No, don't do that. Be happy, be friendly, be awesome, but maintain the boiling hate that inside your heart. I don't know, buddy. I'm rambling at this point. Shut me up and end this podcast.